right, welcome back to another episode 3 here at Small Jobs Electric. As you know, we're in the Tampa Bay area. We like to thank our audience for continuing to support our channel here. And today we're going to be talking about when to call an electrician, when to DIY something. And I'm here with Lewis.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, one of our senior techs, and Carla.
Hello.
She also works in our office, and she's going to be asking the questions today.
The hard, tough questions.
Oh man,
I'm
I'm gonna be in for it.
Yeah. So hopefully this will provide some value to our customers and help you to make some decisions on what you're going to do in your home and what you can't do.
So along that line,
Mm.
DIY versus calling a professional. I think a lot of people feel, I don't know, emboldened to do their own electrical work these days. You know, someone recently told me that the second most searched search engine for things is YouTube. And don't we all go to YouTube if we want to know how to do something? I learned how to restring my weed whacker on YouTube. I go
Mhm.
back to it constantly when I forget how to do it. But it's so helpful. It's such a valuable resource. And I think because of it, and now with ChatGPT and all of the AI, people feel like they can do their own electrical work. Is there ever a time that someone should DIY versus calling a professional? What do you guys think?
I think electrical work can be very tricky, especially if you have an older home, right? Maybe when you watch a YouTube video, it might be a newer house, and the wiring from that video that you're watching is maybe something a little bit more standard. But if you have an older home, things can get real complicated really quick. But in my
Yeah.
opinion, you should always call one of us.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should always call an electrician when it comes to electrical. I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, there's this misconception in society that it's just 120 volts of power, and which is a standard voltage we have at an outlet or light switch in your home. But that 120 volts kills over. It represents more than 30% of all electrical deaths happen from 120 volts of power. So, should a homeowner, replace their own switch or outlet, or, install a ceiling fan? It seems simple. But, whenever you look at the instructions to all these things, they market it like anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you look at the instructions, it always says, hire a licensed electrician. And all these instructions, they always say the same thing: hire a licensed electrician. So there's a reason for that, because with electricity, it's not something you can see.
No, you can definitely feel it though. It's-
Yeah,
You
can
guys been
definitely feel it.
shocked with 120 before?
Yeah, I've had my fair share here and there when I first started, but you just have to respect everything. There's professionals for a reason, right? And just because you turn off a switch doesn't mean the power is always off, or just because you turn off the breaker that says the living room outlets, that doesn't mean the living room outlets are on that breaker. And
That's
then if
true.
you don't have a proper tester to go and retest to see if the power's off, I mean, that's when that 120 that doesn't kill anybody can really kill you.
yeah.
Mr. Wilson in school, he used to tell us that 120 kills the most people because homeowners don't respect it.
Mr. Wilson. So, fun fact, that was Nathaniel's teacher at Tampa Bay Tech, right,
Yes,
Mr.
it was.
Wilson? And you had him when you went to school?
I had him when I went to school. Yep.
Yeah. He was a couple decades after
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely different school too.
yeah, different school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you went to I think Irwinville Tech,
Irwin
right?
Tech.
Yeah,
Irwin Tech.
yeah. and I
That's
was at
really
Tampa
cool.
Bay
You
Tech.
guys ended up with the same teacher,
Yeah, we did.
Mr.
Yeah.
Wilson. I think he's retired now, isn't he?
He retired the year that I was there. That was his last year in school.
Wow.
I remember going in and talking to you guys, and Mr. Wilson had my a picture of me
Yep.
from high school.
I saw one of the trucks out on the road and small jobs and residential electricity, and that's what I wanted to do. I never wanted to do too much commercial, so I was like, I think this is perfect for me. And I showed him a picture of the truck, or I mentioned the name of the company to him, and he told me that Nathaniel was going to come out and talk to us one day because I used to be his student.
Yeah,
That's so cool. It's a small world.
It is. It
Small
is.
world in
Tampa's very
Tampa.
small. It's very big and it's growing, but it's very small.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So I think as a female, something I've seen a lot of is these women Instagrammers, and their whole channel is just about them renovating their home. A lot of them start off in these small houses, and then they grow to these mansions. They do well on channels like Instagram. But the whole premise is them renovating. And a lot of times I will see them changing out their light fixture, their chandelier. And I think as a female, I do like to see that because it's really cool to see females doing electrical work. And I think there's more and more women getting into the trade
Yes.
Yeah,
and into
definitely.
trades in general.
Yeah.
Which I think is super cool.
I think I agree. I think it's
definitely
pretty
agree
cool.
too.
Yeah.
Definitely agree too.
Yeah.
There's definitely a market for, the female. They're very detail oriented, and um, they're very good about following direction. I find, women in general, they want to do it right.
Hmm.
They want to, they're clean, they're organized. They certainly have much better handwriting, most of them, than I have.
Yeah.
So most of the time, I'm asking
Yeah.
somebody else to write something down if it's like labeling electrical
Yeah,
panel,
right.
Oh goodness.
than myself. But
I know. What can I
yeah.
say? But I think it's super cool. But and then on the other hand, I think women are watching this at home and they're thinking, well, I can do that. And they have no idea even where their panel is located in their home. And I think it gives people a false sense of security that, yes, I can DIY this. Um, but when it comes to Florida homes in particular, there's a lot of hidden dangers that I don't think people realize make it challenging to DIY electrical work in your home. What are some things that homeowners should keep in mind about what makes Florida homes unique and why that could make DIY challenging?
Well, I mean, like everywhere, there's you've got homes that are older. The Edison Museum is not just down south of here. But homes that were built, we have a lot of homes that were built in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
So you have what we call knob and tube wiring, and it's very brittle. When you go to replace a light, if we go to a house and they have, for example, knob and tube wire, we know how to identify it really quickly because we know what it looks like. But that wire, like the insulation, you just touch it or move the wire just a little bit, and it's like it completely falls apart because it's just so old. It's so dried out. It's literally like paper and it
Yeah.
disintegrates.
I know when we have customers call into the office and they have knob and tube wiring, they don't even know how to describe it, like what they have in their house. But for lay people out there, what's a good description for people to identify if they have knob and tube wiring in their home?
It's a wire wrapped in cloth. Right.
Yeah.
It's
Single
wrapped all
strand.
single
Yeah, it's single
strand.
strand. It's only about the width, a little bit smaller than the width of a pencil,
Mm-hmm.
and they run in parallel. You can see them in the attics. Like if we get a lot of Tampa Electric uh, does like free installation or discounted installation in people's attics, but they got to have a certified electrician come out to their house and sign off that wiring is actually deactivated because they won't even put the installation in if they have the old knob and tube.
Or like the name says it, there'll be these white tubes up in your
Mm-hmm.
ceiling, and then they'll wrap the wires around it, and then go to another one,
Yeah.
wrap it
Aren't they
around it.
porcelain?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
porcelain. They're made out of
Mm-hmm.
porcelain, so they're non-conductive.
Yeah, they're insulators.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So the tubes are the ones that go through the beam. So anywhere where they would drill through a wooden joist, they would run the wire through that, and that was called the tube, and the knob, which is the pieces that you put on the side of the 2x4, the beam, and it would run parallel with the beam. So just kind of some terminology there as to what each one of those things do and why we're there. But basically, they're insulators.
Interesting. So I think something else that I just thought of while you were speaking, when it comes to doing DIY versus calling a professional, here's something a lot of people may not have taken into consideration. If you're doing DIY work at your home and then later you're looking to sell your home,
Yeah.
what kind of challenges does that present as you're going to sell and you've done your own electrical in your house?
A lot. I mean, inspectors, depending on the inspector, some are more picky than others, but inspectors are getting better and better nowadays, as they should. People are buying homes, and every homeowner deserves a good inspection. So now, if you have a homeowner that ran number 14 wire throughout their whole home that's from the 70s and every single circuit's a 20 amp, then there's a lot of things now that are going to have to get rewired. I've ran into a lot of those calls, and
Yeah.
then people get upset at us because maybe the pricing, or there's a lot of work, or maybe they feel like they did everything correctly, but now we have to tell them that things just need to get taken down. And that's when it goes from seeing price to the future cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe someone's trying to save a buck by doing it themselves. We're consumers. We know everything has gotten more expensive. We understand the mentality behind that.
Right.
But sometimes that ends up leading to future costs.
Yeah. And, you know, and the sad thing is, you know, we have people that they say they're electrician. They're on these, you know, these sites, right? That we can go to. And hire somebody, a weekend. I call them weekend warriors because they work somewhere, but you know they're not working at that company right
Someone
now.
else on the weekends.
Yeah. So I mean those type of things, you know, inherently you're at risk.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many homeowners have gone that route, and hired individuals like that, and they were told that they were, you know, a licensed person, a licensed company, but yet the work is, you know, subpar. It's
Mhm.
it's not it's not like it was even to code 10 years ago. Like this is something that would have never passed code, never passed an inspection. But yet, you know, you try to explain that to them, and of course they get frustrated because they've now paid somebody else to do something that now they're going to have to pay again.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the biggest ones is really is that situation. You know, you
Especially
have those
when
weekend warriors that go out there and, you know,
They strap a ladder on their car.
Yeah,
You know who
especially
they
because
are.
a bad job could last 10, 20 years. It could last forever, but it all comes down to when you want to sell a home, or if your house is getting inspected because of the
Mhm.
insurance company has to
you
do
got
Mhm.
a
their
panel
yearly check,
replaced. Yeah, the panel
getting their
replaced,
panel
went permanent.
replaced. Yep. So a lot of these things, they don't come about now, but they come out in the future, and now you're paying for it twice rather than
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
one
if
time.
you are like having to do it in the future, you know, that cost is going to be more than if you just paid an expert to do it at that time. We all know how much costs and prices have risen since 2020 during COVID. And everything's gotten, you know, a lot higher. It's a lot more expensive to be in business, to do business these days. Materials have gotten a lot more expensive. So if you're having to do that job, you know, and have it done by a professional, let's say you did something or you hired, you know, your local handyman or weekend warrior in 20 years, let's say it hopefully lasts that long. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's going to be so much significantly more expensive than if you just had the professional come out and do it.
Especially with code changes. I mean, in 20 years, we have gone now through, and doing the math divided by 3, it's
7.
almost 7 code changes.
Yeah.
So God knows what we're gonna have to do
To bring
aside
it
from just
down.
fixing that to bring it up to code. So
Yeah.
that's where you're gonna see the real cost there.
Yeah. And I, you know, I had actually we have a technician out of job today this morning. I had talked to the homeowner about, you know, getting these things fixed, you know, while they were living in the house. Now they're selling the house. Somebody else, the buyer, is going to benefit from the items that I had brought up that needed to be addressed. And now it's going to be, I'm glad it's getting taken care of because now the house is going to be safer. But it could have been safer for them and their family while they
Right.
were living in the house.
Especially
Right.
because she just had a baby
Yeah.
not long ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, it's like that. Like sometimes we think we're kicking the can down the road, but you know, eventually you have to get these things addressed, but you might as well get them, you know, fixed while you're living in the home.
Especially when your home is your biggest investment.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I know we were talking about too, like, you know, like why breakers trip and stuff. I think that was
One other thing I was going to mention, we have a customer who called in this morning who wants to have an EV charger installed. Now, some people might feel that's a job that they could do on their own, right? They can do a DIY. A lot of people don't know that if they DIY their own outlet for their EV charger, for their electric vehicle, it could void the warranty on their car. I think that's an important thing to put out there for people.
Tesla wants you to use certified electricians and pull a permit for you to be actually
Yeah.
installing their chargers for them to warranty it. That's very much correct.
Yeah, and I know we're on the list.
Yeah.
of that.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
We are one of their top certified consultants for putting in the outlets for them. So those are things to keep in mind. Plus, that customer, not only if someone tried to DIY that and he could void the warranty on his vehicle, but his panel isn't big enough to have another dedicated circuit.
Right.
So we had to do some load calcs, and we realized that he needs to upgrade his panel if he wants to do this job.
Yeah.
But a typical DIYer may not know that, and they might just charge right ahead and add that circuit. And what kind of challenges could that cause?
And your whole house could end up without power because now you're wondering, hey, my main breaker just tripped.
Yeah.
And it might happen in the evening when you're cooking and now the stove's running, the ACs are cooling down the house, you're back from work, you're charging your car because it's low on battery and
Hmm.
probably
Yeah.
wouldn't think anything of it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that, well, I got a 200 amp electrical panel, and the load's, you know, 182 amps. I've still got some capacity here, but
Right.
really not even supposed to load it up over 160 amps.
Right.
So if you already have 182 amps in this situation worth of load, I mean, they're already over what they're supposed to have.
So that's, there's a lot of things to keep in mind. I think something else too, um, when people call into the office, sometimes people can get a little spicy with us or a little frustrated because they want DIY advice.
Yeah.
And quick question, are we allowed to give DIY advice over the phone?
No, we can't, and it's obviously for legal reasons. If we were to go in and tell somebody how to do something, or you can just do this or that, apart from pressing the little reset button on the GFI, we could open ourselves up to liability.
Mhm.
We say, hey, you can do that. You could change your own switch or something like that. But in fact, they can't really do that.
Yeah,
And if someone has to ask us if they can even do it, then that answers the question
if they
already,
should.
if
Yeah.
they should,
Yeah.
right? So, so that this is one of the reasons why we don't tell people over the phone, what to do, or even when we're out their house, we're not going to tell customers how to do stuff.
And if it was one of us picking up the phone, I mean, me as an electrician here, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it because I don't know what wires you have in your hand, what they go to. We're not there seeing what you're doing, so we really don't even know what we're telling you to connect if we were to.
Mm.
So you could be connecting something that shouldn't be powered up for all we know, and that could create problems for you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I think sometimes people don't always understand that our liability insurance actually prohibits us from telling, we'll get people that call in and say, I did X, Y, and Z at my house. Can you tell me if it's safe? I'm sorry. We cannot say yes and we cannot say no. Our liability insurance actually prohibits us from giving that kind of instruction over the phone. So it's just something else to keep in mind. You can't, no good professional is going to be able to give you DIY instructions or bless your DIY project if they're a reputable company, because they won't be able to do that. So you'll never know if what you did is right. It might work, but is it safe? That's the
We don't
question.
know. We really
We don't know.
And then what
That's
if we say yes and someone gets hurt,
mm-hmm.
right? So then it all goes back on us.
Yeah.
And then there are other things to take into consideration. We live in Florida. How does the weather either impact what someone might DIY at their house or affect what's required at their house?
Rainy season kicks off a lot of issues. If you have a lot of outlets outside that we haven't kept up with over the years, bubble covers, they lose their gaskets in the back. So now
Mm.
there's water dripping down the sides of your house and you're wondering why this GFI keeps tripping every time it rains. Or maybe you don't even notice that it's every time it rains, but you're always resetting it and resetting it. Or you have extension cords connected outside and now you're having issues. Don't ignore those signs. Definitely call somebody so we can figure these things out. Or
Call us.
yeah, call us. Call us for
You
sure.
probably already
Yeah,
called
call
us if you're
us.
watching this, but yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Um,
little things like this, they tend to peak up during this time around.
mhm. Now, I would say, because we do live in an area we're surrounded by water, being a peninsula here in Florida, there's a lot of folks that have docks,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of dock wiring. If we had a storm that comes through, that storm surge has come in and gotten all the components wet. So there's those things that are unique. Not everybody has water. We have water. We got lakes, and then we also have all the canals and
Beachfront
everything,
homes.
beachfront homes. Yeah,
Beachfront homes with let's say meters that aren't stainless steel outside. Those things they corrode over time. You know, that water's evaporating. There's sodium in the air, starts getting on things, and over the years you have to do these upgrades outside because things start corroding the bottom of people's panels. I've seen them, huge holes under them where you can just stick your hand up inside of them.
That's
yeah.
not safe.
Yeah,
And there's that up in Pasco County. There's that naturally occurring gas.
radon gas.
Yeah, the radon.
Radon gas.
So, can you explain a little bit more about that? What if someone lives now? That issue is specific. We found to a particular area in Pasco. What parts of Pasco are affected by that radon gas?
I want to say mostly Lakeland. I mean, not Lakeland, Land O'Lakes. Land O'Lakes, I've seen it the most while I've been here.
Yeah,
Anything
yeah.
in Wesley Chapel?
Yeah,
Wesley Chapel
yeah, Wesley
also.
Chapel. Pretty much, it's interesting. It's almost like 54 North. So
Yes.
if you're looking to buy a house north of 54 in Pasco, you want to maybe check to see if there's radon and gas. And like before you buy a house, there's always these disclaimers and stuff like that in the paperwork when you're buying it. Yeah, so north of 54, if you're like looking to buy a house in that area, I would recommend that you check to, have your soil checked and
Yeah.
see, because it like deteriorates anything that's copper. So if you got like copper wiring, I mean, I know you've seen it too,
Yeah.
where it's like you go in, you open up the electrical panel, and like everything is black, and you're like, "What's going on here?"
So I swapped out a service last year and I still have the pictures for it. And it looked like there was almost like, you know how moss grows on the side of trees? That's exactly what it looked like all over their
In their
bus bars.
panel?
Yeah.
Oh,
On their bus
gosh.
bars. It went from copper to just black and like this little
Furry?
It's
furry. It's
yeah,
like
it starts
furry.
burning.
Yeah.
It's like
And
burning the
the
copper.
house wasn't even 10 years old.
Yeah.
It was, so I mean, they had a lot of it coming through.
So, if someone has one of these homes and they open their panel, it's black. They should call us, close the panel immediately, call us
You should have
up.
never even opened the panel.
Yeah.
In the first place.
Don't open the panel.
What kind of danger does that present to a homeowner if they're looking to DIY something in their panel? Like maybe replace a breaker or something in their panel and they have these radon issues.
Well, first of all, they shouldn't even
Yeah.
open the panel. They should call an electrician. A lot of times they find out about the radon glass because they're like selling the house. So
Mm.
they got a home inspector, or they need if the home is older in an older neighborhood, if it's like 40 years or older, they need a 4-point inspection so they can get insurance to renew their insurance. A lot of times this happens and causes us to have to go out to people's homes.
So, what kind of danger is that? If someone's got radon gas, they definitely don't want to be doing any DIY in their house. They have a major other issue happening. They should just
Right.
close that door gently and walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So definitely it doesn't just affect the panel. You have copper inside of your breakers. So breakers are also closed in. So if any radon gets in there, I mean it's also deteriorating the breakers that are feeding the circuits inside of your home. Potentially they could not trip or they could stop working. And then if we go out and we decide, hey, let's check the panel, that's when we'll find out mostly if they have radon gas because then we'll see the evidence in there.
Mm-hmm.
But what if the breaker just stays on and doesn't trip? Now you have a bad breakers all throughout your panel. So you definitely want to find ways to seal the conduits coming into all these panels and put in the
we have a
correct panels.
method. Yeah, we have a method for that, and we even swap out the type of panels we use so that this way, it cuts down on some of that those issues with the copper being burned.
Yeah, there's definitely other brands that we can put in there to help mitigate all of it.
So let's say we have a DIY homeowner in, I don't know, Town and Country or Egypt Lake, and they are wanting to add an outlet in their home. They go to, let's say they're adding a dedicated circuit or something crazy like that they would be attempting as a DIY project. And then they go to add the breaker into their panel, and their panel says Zinsco, or their panel says Federal Pacific. What then?
Well, I mean, those are older panels. Obviously, in most cases, those panels are probably original with the home, and it's pretty easy these days. I mean, that's a good thing for a homeowner to do research.
Right.
They can find a lot of research and information about those type of panels, but they're known to have had issues. So you certainly want a breaker that's going to work and function and trip and not allow more current. You know, if the breaker says 20 amps on it, you don't want 50 amps going through that breaker because then the wire is going to overheat and catch on fire.
Mhm.
So that's the inherited issues with those brands of breakers or circuit panels.
Mhm.
That's all you need. It's failure to interrupt, heat, and time, and then it's
It's a
over.
recipe for disaster,
Dun,
really.
dun, dun. So, one last question as we wrap this up. So the answer to the question is when should you DIY an electrical project at your home? And when you should call a professional is?
Well, you should
Should
never
always
DIY any electrical things at your home.
That's right.
always call
Call a
us.
professional. Yeah.
Always call a professional.
Yeah.
And we are ready to take your call. So if you need help, we're here for you 24/7. So I think a lot of people want to know because we're coming up on hurricane season. They're talking about this supposing to be some kind of Godzilla, El Nino year.
Sounds scary. It already sounds scary.
Well, especially in the fall, right? So, and for most other people in the country, that's not a problem. But in Florida, a Godzilla El Nino in the fall, like September, October, that's a really big problem for us. So a lot of people are starting to think seriously about hurricane season this year because of the forecasts. I saw a graph recently of the most, the areas that should be most on alert for this hurricane season, and Tampa Bay was in the highest risk. And we know that that's not just a threat after the last couple years. So people, I think, are wanting to take this seriously this year. So I think what people want to know is when it comes to powering their houses, because so many people, Irma, Ian, Helene, Milton, we can go on and on with all the storms that have come by and disrupted our power here in the Tampa Bay area. So what are the best options? Should you go standby? Should you do portable? When it comes to running your home after you've lost power. So I think next episode, we're going to get the burning answer to that question.
Sounds exciting.
There's a lot to talk about in there.
Yeah, that's a big one to unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely good choices for a lot of different people.
Yeah, and different price points there too.
Yes, absolutely.
There's something there for everybody.
Yeah,
Something affordable
And
for
I
everybody.
feel like maybe some people might be surprised by how much we can do with just the bare minimum.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. But I think so many people felt helpless in 2024, especially after, I think there was some 40,000 households in Pinellas County alone that had major damage to their home. That's people not running their power, being able to have electricity.
Yeah.
So what are people's options? We know that there are a lot of procrastinators out there. They like to give us a call about a week before a storm's supposed to hit.
I remember we did like
2 days
40,
before.
I think I had like 40 transfer switches in
Yeah.
1 week,
Oh yeah.
one of the hurricane seasons.
Sometimes it feels like we're doing 40 in one day when there's a storm coming.
Absolutely.
So I think people really want to be prepared. So there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of things that people can do that they may not realize. So next time we meet, let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Get ready
great.
for hurricane season 2026.
sounds great.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed this episode number 3, on whether or not you should DIY your electrical projects. And we hope you enjoyed watching our 3rd episode for Small Jobs Electric. And we'd like to thank Carla and Lewis here, our guests, for joining us. And I'm Nathaniel, and we'll see you next time.